Well, thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you. I particularly want to thank President Suraj Vaidya, FNCCI. I understand this has been an extraordinarily productive and very important conference, and it comes at a very special time, so thank you. I also, of course, want to recognize and acknowledge the Chief Secretary, the Finance Secretary, our own Ambassador, Peter Bodie, who is here with us, and Beth Dunford, our Mission Director for USAID here in Nepal. We have a great team in Kathmandu that is committed to the success of the Nepali people. It's a real honor. This is my first visit to Nepal, and to have the opportunity to see firsthand the extraordinary opportunity facing one of USAID's closest and longest standing partners. Over the last few days, I've walked around the historic Patan neighborhood to see how communities are constructing safer buildings to withstand earthquakes. I've met local scientists who are using satellite remote sensing data to help communities adapt to climate change so that farmers can estimate crop yields, a crop insurance system can be developed, and the agricultural community can plan ahead and better protect itself from coming risks. And I joined the Minister of Health to present an award to the team here in Nepal that developed chlorhexidine, a life-saving medical gel that was created right here and is going to be manufactured at scale by a private company here and can cut the risk of infant death by 23% throughout this country very quickly. Given these experiences, it has not been hard to see why Nepal has been only one of just 8 fragile states to have successfully halved extreme poverty ahead of the 2015 target for its Millennium Development Goal. It didn't take 20 years. In fact, it didn't even take 10. In just the last 7 years, between 2003 and 2011, the extreme poverty rate fell from 53% of the population to 24.8% of the population right here in Nepal. Child death in that period has been cut in half, and more Nepali children now go to school than ever before, enabling a new generation of Nepalese children to grow up in dignity and security. This is extraordinary progress. And after more than a decade of insurgency and post-conflict challenges, the political environment has now stabilized. And we recognize, and I'm here because right now, without a doubt, is a unique and important moment for Nepal, its economy, and its people. Thanks to a history of progress and new advances in science and technology and innovation, Nepal stands within reach of ending extreme poverty within its borders and securing a foundation for long-term economic growth that can ensure greater prosperity for all of its citizens. But this future, as exciting as it is not inevitable. It is now up to Nepal's leaders, Nepal's new leaders, to take advantage of this moment in history, to develop and implement a constitution that is inclusive and locks in the gains we have seen in successful democratic process of late, to send a message to the world that Nepal is in fact open for business, investment, and growth, and to quickly present a coherent plan to use economic growth and improved governance to make life better for all of the people of Nepal, especially its poorest citizens. Because for the poorest, that still number more than 8 million Nepalese citizens who get by on less than $1.25 a day, for this population, poverty continues to have catastrophic consequences. Does a parent buy medicines for a sick child or provide an evening meal for their family, or put away money for school supplies and uniforms? These questions remain an everyday reality, especially for Nepal's subsistence farmers, for whom extreme poverty is not just a statistic, but a drain on their basic dignity. But today, Nepal has a new government and a new choice. It can set ambitious development goals to end extreme poverty for these 8 million citizens. But accomplishing these goals will take partnership, innovation, and a commitment to policy reform, and indeed will require Nepal to usher in the new model of development that I know you have been discussing in these past few days in this important conference. If the old model of development was getting the World Bank or USAID to come and write a check and hire contractors to build a dam, the new model of development is partnering with the engines of growth, from local entrepreneurs to international businesses. Here in Nepal, USAID and the United States is committed to working with you in high-impact partnerships to strengthen local capacity and build these thriving markets of the future. Nowhere is this more important than in agricultural development, which we know is one of the surest routes out of poverty for the people of this great country. Since growth tied to agricultural productivity gains is 3 to 6 times more effective at raising the incomes of the poor than growth from any other sector. This is absolutely true right here, where more than 65% of the population continues to make its livelihood in the agricultural economy. That's why we're working through President Obama's Global Food Security Initiative, called Feed the Future, to improve nutrition and agricultural outcomes for more than 1 million Nepali farmers and their households. Armed with new research on high-yield, climate-resilient maize varieties, often developed right here by scientists in this country, we've trained more than 200 community groups in seed production, including field inspection and post-harvest management. Perhaps most exciting, several of these groups have grown to become full-fledged private seed companies. As a result, 50,000 rural families have already generated an additional $1 million in sales, as maize yields nationwide have improved 36%. But raising incomes means little if families don't have access to loans to grow their businesses or bank accounts to help save money for school fees. By partnering with local banks, we've helped expand mobile banking services and to give families the opportunity to pay loans, transfer money, or receive their salary right on their phone. These types of systems are transforming economies in other parts of the world, and the potential for transformation right here is tremendous. In the last year alone, banks served more than 19,000 new clients and dispersed more than $2.3 million in rural loans to almost 8,000 borrowers, most of whom were women and most of whom were considered unbankable just a few years ago. Today, Nepali private sector leaders estimate that mobile financial services will reach all 75 districts within 5 years. Enormous progress in a country where 70% of all families still don't have a bank account. We've also partnered with a local company called Lomas Pharmaceuticals to accelerate progress in ending preventable child death. Because the truth is that even as we've seen enormous progress in some areas of health, we've seen stagnation, including that of the rate of newborn infant deaths in this country. That's why in 2005 we supported a randomized controlled trial across 15,000 kids to test whether a new product, a chlorhexidine solution, could in fact save those children's lives in the first days and months of their young life. The results were stunning and will change the world. We found a 23% reduction in infant mortality from a product that is currently only manufactured here in Nepal. Based on these findings, we're working with the Ministry of Health to bring chlorhexidine to newborns throughout the country. And the United States will work to bring this product to countries all over the world. Chlorhexidine is just one example of the power of science, innovation, and entrepreneurship to solve seemingly intractable challenges here and around the world. We're also harnessing cutting-edge technology to strengthen Nepal's resilience to climate change. As many of you know, Nepal is the 14th most vulnerable country in the world to climate change, which means that the slightest rise in temperature or the briefest change in rainfall has the potential to affect millions of people, pushing them back below the poverty line. In a partnership with local scientists and the United States National Aeronautics and Space Administration, a partnership we call SERVIR, we're harnessing satellite data to help communities here plan ahead. In just one example of the power this system brings, we now are able to have our scientists send text messages to forest officials so they can monitor forest fires in real time and work to prevent and end the consequences of those fires. Today, over 250 local forest officials from across Nepal receive these alerts on their mobile phones. But business and technology alone are not enough to end extreme poverty and achieve Nepal's economic potential. Political leadership and policy reform are essential preconditions to success. Nepal's immediate and proactive approach to implementing pro-growth policies will be instrumental to this nation's progress. Despite the nation's well-known hydropower potential, for instance, this sector remains woefully underdeveloped. Today, only about 700 megawatts of electricity generation have been developed, a small fraction of the 80 gigawatts of Nepal's hydropower potential. The government has made great strides in enacting coherent policies to develop hydropower, but critically important reforms, and reforms that private investors will watch before determining whether to place their bets here in this country, are still needed. Similar reforms are needed in the nation's agriculture and seed policies to allow greater private sector participation in the development and marketing of agricultural inputs to farmers throughout this nation. This includes simplifying seed registration procedures and compensation guidelines, and creating an economic framework for companies to engage in all kinds of contractual relationships between food producers and buyers. We know, and I live and work in Washington, D.C., so I can say with authority that we know that reforms and policy progress are difficult to implement. We seem to be proving that every day ourselves. But you have a unique opportunity. In my day and a half here, I've seen nothing but optimism from the private sector, the public sector, civil society, small-scale farmers, scientists, who now see that if the current political gains usher in a decade of political stability, and if government leaders working with private business and sources of science and innovation can come together and craft a vision of accelerating economic growth and moving people out of poverty, success in Nepal is in fact not just realistic, but likely. 6 decades ago, Nepal and the United States first came together to build a new future for all Nepalis. Many of our early partnerships led to Nepal's first roads and in fact installed its first telephone exchange. And though our commitment remains just as strong today as it was 60 years ago, today we know that a new and different approach is necessary and in fact better. An approach that brings public and private partners together to build out modern infrastructure in energy, telecommunications, tourism, and agriculture can help serve as the basis of Nepal's future. And an approach that continues to build on the gains we've made, but insists on more data and accountability and results in health and education can continue to improve opportunities for the next generation of Nepal's leaders. We look forward to working with you. We know now is a special time. We wish you the best of luck and the most success. And together, we believe Nepal can be an example of what's possible in the next 10 to 15 years as we work around the world to answer President Obama's call to end extreme poverty as we know it.